Hello, and welcome to Biomechanoid Blues. This is my vlog. My name is Andy Popovic. I'm a writer and sometime author. And this is going to be the first real entry in a series I have on what I'm calling the Horror Project. Okay, I'm going to see what I have to do to get that to be less strident. Thank you. So, well, what is the Horror Project? If you missed my previous video, which is going to be linked below, it basically is an attempt to teach myself how to write horror. Because I love horror. I love horror movies and horror fiction, but I've never quite gotten the knack of writing it. So I set myself a task to learn what I can. And the first part is, of course, defining, well, horror. And I'm not going to go into the big, essay questions. I mean, there are a lot of folks out there who have written some great books on what is horror. So I wanted to talk first about, personally, what is horror to me? And I'm going to give you an example, just to start off the bat, of what I don't like in horror. Just to give you a negative so you understand the positive. So, well, the best way I can sum up what I hate about horror, especially quickly, cheaply produced horror, usually written by dudes, is kind of this. Hello? Is anyone there? Listen, my biracial husband and I were just having premarital sex in our medical marijuana garden before the LGBTQ Antifa meeting. If you're looking to come in, just let me know. We can have a seat in the foyer. Hello? Ah! So, one, that doesn't scare me. Two, it is also representative of the things that are honestly the worst about horror in general. It can be conservative, reactive, old-fashioned, cheap. It's at its worst, it can embody essentially all the worst things about, well, writing in general, fiction, and us, and get celebrated for it. Before I talk about, though, what is the best in horror, I want to actually touch on what scares me personally. So, the first, well, powerlessness, specifically paralyzation. When I was growing up as a kid, I kept having dreams where I was frozen and something was crawling over me and on top of me. And I don't mean in a cute way like one of my cats. I meant insects, something monstrous. The worst one was this old portrait of a Serbian ancestor. It was dark and cloudy, hadn't been cleaned and restored. All you could see was his glaring eyes, bald head, and this massive walrus-like mustache that I always imagined feeling like, wire bristles as he would come in, crawl on top of me, and brush them against my throat. And later in life, the fear of powerlessness expanded into other places. There's a reason why one of my favorite authors is Franz Kafka, because he captures that perfectly. This sense of being trapped, helpless. You can't move. can't breathe. There's nothing you can do to change the situation. You're watching a wreck happen. Or you're in a car wreck. Everything is happening in slow motion. And you can't change things. And that kind of loss and powerlessness always scares me. The slow moments where somebody is holding their breath, waiting for someone or something to pass by, are the ones that will always get me more than anything else. Or the sense that you're seeing something creeping up behind a person. You know you can't warn the character. That will get me. The other thing that scares me is abuse and secrets. And I tie those two together because, and maybe this is something that, my generation has run into more than others, maybe not. There's always this sense of something in the background, in the past, has happened. Someone abused something. Someone took advantage. They did something horrible, benefited from it, and now you get to pay for it. Examples of this, in book are numerous. I mean, the entire Gothic genre was based on what's the terrible secret hiding within the house. What horrors were committed to create this current state of affairs. If you're looking for a modern version, The Fog is a perfect example. It is literally a village built on lies and blood gold, having to deal with the people they sacrificed coming back to take revenge. And those hidden things, those moments where you scream at someone, usually an authority figure who's profited from all of this, that you monster, you moved the graves, but you didn't move the bodies. Those are some of the things that get me the most. That realization of exactly what your life has been built on, and exactly how much blood has been soaked in that earth. And then lastly, body horror. And not so much in movies, because honestly, I studied film, so I get fascinated with how do they get that effect done, or, what do they do there. Although a good director and a good actor can add another layer onto it. I mean, David Cronenberg turning, The Fly into a metaphor for losing someone to cancer. There you go. But for me, it was always more tactile and taste. One of the other nightmares I used to have involved, well, frankly, my dad smoked. And he would put out his cigarettes in the bathroom sink, so that everything would stink. And he wouldn't just throw them in the trash, he would toss them in the toilet and not flush. So we would go into the bathroom, it would reek of cigarettes. You would open up the toilet and there would be these broken, burnt, half rotted, half soaked chunks of tobacco covering the oily surface of the bowl. And I would have dreams about getting that stuck onto my face and in my mouth. I would imagine loose hair crawling down my throat. Dirt of all kinds just kind of seeping into me. Again, this is partly powerlessness, but also just that slick sense of disgust that digs into everything. That still will make me queasy. And a good person who can combine all of these things, and then of course add on top the other essences of good storytelling, will get me every time. So, if that scares me, and if those kinds of things freak me out, and they're commonplace in horror, why do I go for it? What gets me about it? Well, the first thing I love about this is there is a sense of terror, but also a sense of wonder as well. It isn't just about being horrified, but being stunned by something that you never expected to see. My first real touch point for horror was the books of John Bellairs, specifically The Mummy, The Will, and The Crypt. There was something terrifying in that old mansion, but there was wonder in there, adventure, intrigue. There were secrets to be dug up. And that was the other thing that got to me about horror fiction, is that one of the keys to, if not meeting the horror, at least surviving it in some way. And mind you, you may not be intact, you may not even be you, but understanding, knowledge, learning was always the key. It was understanding what was going on in the house that would let the protagonist, be able to get out of that gothic manse. One of the things that attracted me to Call of Cthulhu, not the short story, the game, was this sense of investigation and finding the unknown. I still remember picking up a copy of the third edition in a Walden Books. Yes, I'm that old. But getting this sense of they're digging into things and trying to at least understand their position in the world, and while that may drive them mad, that also gave them power. At least they had some small, granular amount of agency in all of this. So understanding is survival. And frankly, explicitness and willing to dig into all sorts of different areas. I mean, the reason Laurel K. Hamilton, when she was writing what's now basically considered paranormal romance or urban fantasy, lobbied to get classified as a horror author was because she could actually talk about gritty crimes and nasty things happening, blood and violence, without having to be concerned about, offending some person who came in looking for a Tolkien clone as a fantasist. For me, that level of kind of truth, that willingness to speak to things, is paramount. I mean, from my favorite authors, Tanith Lee took all sorts of nightmarish subjects but made them beautiful as well, and was honest about them in a way that you can only get with horror. Probably my favorite author who takes all of the things I love was Peter Straub. And mystery, again, I will keep saying this until the day I drop. Mystery is a perfect encapsulation of all the things that I love. Because the things that scare me are in that book. Powerlessness, abuse, and secrets. Yes, body horror. But also there's wonder in there, in the terror. There's, a search to unravel the mystery. And then, yes, you know, Peter Straub is not afraid to leave the camera unfiltered when it comes to showing the dark. So these are the things that scare me, but also attract me to horror. And I think that is why I love the genre so much. Because it does both. You are both interested and repelled. You are curious and terrified. You want to see what's behind the dumpster in the back of the Stuckies. But you also know you're going to pay for it when you do. So that's it for me this time around. Next topic, we're going to be going further into the horror project and talking a little bit about some of the research that I've been doing about horror and writing horror. So until next time, take care, be well, and be seeing you.